The strangest laws in history that actually existed. 1. The ban on pointy shoes, England 15th century. In medieval England, fashion wasn't just about looking good. It was about showing off wealth and power. By the late 14th and early 15th century, a peculiar trend swept across Europe. Extremely long, pointy shoes called polanes. Some stretched up to 24 inches past the toe, curling upward in exaggerated style. The wealthy strutted around with these impractical shoes as a symbol of status, while commoners often imitated them in shorter versions. But the fad went too far. By 1463, King Edward IV had enough. He banned shoes with toes longer than 2 inches beyond the foot for anyone who wasn't of noble rank. Why? Because he believed the style was indecent, distracting, worse. The shoes were so impractical that they tripped people up in battle and work. Breaking this law wasn't just a fashion faux pas, it could lead to fines. Imagine today being arrested because your sneakers had too much style. Could you imagine going to jail for wearing the wrong shoes? 2. The beard tax, Russia, 1698. In 1698, Tsar Peter the Great of Russia decided it was time to modernize his country to be more like Western Europe. One of the first things he targeted? Beards. While beards were a symbol of masculinity and piety in Russian Orthodox culture, Peter saw them as backward and barbaric. He issued a decree. Every man, unless he was a peasant or clergyman, had to shave his beard. Those who insisted on keeping theirs had to pay a special beard tax. Once paid, they received a small copper token with the engraving of a nose, mouth, and beard, plus the words, "The beard is a superfluous burden." If you couldn't show the token, you risked fines or having your beard forcibly shaved. This law caused outrage, especially among religious men who believed shaving was a sin. Some reportedly kept their beard clippings so that when they died, they could be buried with them. Peter's beard tax eventually faded, but not before leaving Russia with one of history's strangest examples of state-controlled fashion. Would you pay money just to keep your beard? 3. The forbidden umbrella, China, 18th century. During the Qing dynasty in China, the emperor had absolute authority, even over everyday objects. One unusual restriction was placed on umbrellas. In imperial China, yellow was the color of the emperor alone, and owning or displaying yellow umbrellas was forbidden for ordinary citizens. The umbrella itself was also deeply tied to imperial ceremonies. For commoners, carrying an umbrella in the wrong context could be seen as an insult to imperial dignity. The law varied across regions, but the symbolism was clear. Umbrellas weren't just about rain. They were political. This meant that if you walked through the streets of Beijing with the wrong umbrella, you weren't just breaking etiquette, you could be accused of treason. Imagine risking execution for carrying the wrong umbrella color. 4. The law against chewing gum, Singapore, 1992. One of the most famous modern strange laws comes from Singapore. In 1992, the government passed a strict ban on the import and sale of chewing gum. Why? Because gum was being stuck under seats, train doors, and sidewalks, causing constant cleanup problems. The final straw was when vandals jammed subway, train doors with gum, delaying the entire transit system. The government reacted with one of the strictest laws in the world. Gum could not be imported, sold, or manufactured. Penalties were harsh, with fines up to $100,000 or even jail time for large-scale offenders. Although the law relaxed slightly in 2004 to allow therapeutic chewing gum like nicotine gum, Singapore's anti-gum policy remains one of the oddest modern restrictions. Would you survive living somewhere you couldn't chew gum? 5. The hat tax, England, 1784. England in the late 18th century was always looking for new ways to raise revenue. One of the strangest methods. A tax on hats. Starting in 1784, anyone who bought a hat had to pay a tax, and the hat seller had to issue a special receipt. Wealthier individuals were taxed at a higher rate, under the assumption that richer people wore more expensive hats. To enforce this law, hats had to carry a revenue stamp. Selling a hat without the stamp was punishable by a hefty fine, and forging a stamp could mean the death penalty. Yes, you could literally be executed for faking a tax receipt on a hat. The law lasted until 1811, but for nearly 3 decades, Englishmen risked their lives over headwear. Would you risk execution just to avoid paying a tax on your hat? From beards to chocolate, hats to umbrellas, history is filled with laws that seem absurd to us today. But to the people who lived under them, these rules were serious business, sometimes a matter of faith, morality, or even survival. They remind us that what seems normal in one era can look utterly bizarre in another. So which of these strange laws shocked you the most? And more importantly, which one would you have definitely broken if you lived back then?